Welcome back to the channel, my dear history lovers. If you pull an old coin out of a drawer, maybe a dime you barely remember putting there, and as you turn it over in your hand something about it catches your eye. It's a 1980 Liberty dime, tiny and seemingly insignificant, yet somehow it feels different, like it might hold a history worth far more than its 10-cent face value. What if I told you that this small coin, struck decades ago in a United States mint, could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars today because of mistakes that occurred when it was made? What if that ordinary piece of metal was secretly one of the most fascinating collectibles in American numismatics? That's what we're going to explore: the deep, rich history of the 1980 Liberty dime, how and why certain examples are worth far more than their face value, the mint errors and anomalies that make them unique, and how collectors around the world assign value to these tiny treasures. The history of the 1980 Liberty dime begins with a legacy that stretches back to the mid-20th century. The Roosevelt dime, the design family that includes the 1980 coin, was introduced in 1946 following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a figure beloved by many Americans not only for his leadership during tumultuous times but also for his connection to the March of Dimes charity. The dime replaced the earlier Mercury dime and carried forward a simple yet elegant design: the brilliant profile of Roosevelt on the obverse and a striking torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. By 1980, the Roosevelt dime was a well-established part of daily commerce in the United States. Coins like the 1980 dime changed hands countless times in wallets, cash registers, vending machines, and parking meters. They were struck in a clad composition introduced in 1965, made of an outer layer of copper nickel welded to a pure copper core, a shift from the silver content used in dimes prior to that date. The Denver Mint, identified by its D Mint mark on the coin, produced hundreds of millions of these dimes in 1980, so many that most collectors and everyday people assumed they would never be anything more than pocket change. That assumption holds true for most 1980 dimes. A typical circulated example, worn smooth by years of handling and barely discernible in detail, is still worth 10 cents in everyday commerce. But within the vast sea of nearly identical pieces, there exists a fascinating range of anomalies, errors, and special conditions that can propel the value of certain coins far beyond face value. To understand why, we must take a deep dive into the minting process, coin collecting culture, and the specific types of errors that make some 1980 dimes highly sought after. Today, coins are struck in massive volumes by highly automated machinery. Blank metal discs, called planchets, are fed into coining presses where engraved dies, one for the obverse and one for the reverse, strike them with tremendous force. Ideally, each coin comes out with crisp, complete details. Roosevelt's profile perfectly centered, the torch and its intricate bands fully visible, the date and mint mark clear as day. But perfection is the ideal, not the guaranteed outcome. Just as in any manufacturing process, mistakes happen. Sometimes a planchet isn't properly aligned when it's struck, sometimes the metal blank is flawed, sometimes a die becomes worn or damaged, and sometimes the mint mark is misplaced or distorted. These mistakes are rare compared to the millions of correctly struck coins, but when they do occur, they transform a mundane piece of currency into an object of intrigue. One of the first types of anomalies that coin collectors watch for in modern dimes is the quality of the strike itself. Even among coins that appear otherwise normal, some 1980 dimes were struck with exceptional clarity. Collectors examined certain features, particularly the bands on the torch on the reverse, to determine whether a coin qualifies for what is known in numismatic grading as full bands. This designation is given when the horizontal bands on the torch are fully separated and complete, showing little or no weakness from the die. It might seem like a minor detail, but to dedicated collectors it's a sign of superior strike quality. Coins with full bands, especially in high grade, meaning they show little wear and strong luster, can command prices that far exceed their face value. In collectors' auctions and online markets, uncirculated 1980 dimes with full bands in top condition have sold for amounts that would astonish someone who last looked at a dime as pocket change. Why does full bands matter so much? The short answer is that it reflects how forcefully and precisely a coin was struck. Even in high-volume production, not every coin receives the same quality of strike. A coin with weak or incomplete bands is simply less visually appealing and is considered less desirable by collectors. Those with fully distinct, sharp bands on the torch signify a coin that came from a die that was performing at peak quality. In the world of graded coins, small differences in strike detail can lead to large differences in value, and for Roosevelt dimes the full bands designation has become a key factor that differentiates a common coin from a premium collectible. Beyond strike quality, errors that occur during production can have an even more dramatic impact on worth. These errors fall into several categories, and while they are less common than standard coins, they do occasionally appear in circulation or in collections. One of these error types is the clipped planchet. This happens when the metal strip from which planchets are punched shifts slightly, causing the blank to be cut improperly. Instead of a perfect circle, the planchet is produced with a curved missing section along its edge. When such a coin is struck and enters circulation, that missing segment is permanent. The result is a coin that is unmistakably unusual and collectors notice. The value of a clipped planchet 1980D dime depends on the severity of the clip, the overall condition of the coin, and demand among error coin collectors. Minor clips might only be worth slightly more than face value, while dramatic clips that remove a significant portion of the coin's edge, yet still leave the date and mint mark legible, can fetch dozens or even hundreds of dollars. The allure of error coins is partly aesthetic, the odd, almost surreal look, and partly numismatic, because they represent a departure from the expected, a glimpse into the imperfections of mechanical production. Another mint error that can increase the value of a 1980D dime is an off-center strike. This occurs when the planchet isn't perfectly aligned within the coining press, causing the design to be struck away from the center. Like the clipped planchet, the degree of off-center matters. A coin that is only slightly off-center might be barely noticeable and not fetch much more than face value. But when the misalignment is dramatic, with significant parts of Roosevelt's portrait or the torch cut off, these coins become visually striking oddities that attract collectors' attention. Off-center dimes with substantial misalignment can sell for prices well above face value, often in the range of tens or even hundreds of dollars depending on the specific error and condition. Even rarer are blank planchet coins, examples that somehow missed the coining process entirely and were never struck with a design. These look like small, flat metal discs with no image at all. They are exceedingly uncommon, because blanks are typically used exclusively as the starting material for making coins. But occasional escapes happen, and when they do, blank planchets are considered curiosities that many collectors are willing to pay a premium for. While they lack any design detail that might be graded for quality, their sheer rarity as unstruck blanks gives them collectible appeal. Errors can also occur in the metal composition itself. A lamination error happens when the layers of the clad composition separate or bulge because of an impurity or flaw in the metal strip. The result can be patches on the coin where the surface layer peels away or exposes the inner copper core. In some cases, these errors arise after the coin enters circulation due to environmental factors, and such post-mint damage is generally not considered collectible. However, when the lamination error is genuine to the minting process and can be authenticated as such, it becomes another valuable anomaly that collectors seek. Another intriguing area for errors involves the mint mark itself. The mint mark indicates which U.S. mint facility produced the coin, in this case, the Denver Mint, denoted with a D on the coin. Rarely, mint marks can be struck incorrectly, doubled, misplaced, or distorted due to die wear or mistakes in die preparation. Although official varieties for the 1980D dime related to mint mark errors are not widely recognized in collectors' catalogs, individual coins do occasionally surface with unusual mint mark characteristics. For serious collectors, any unique mint mark presentation can add to the coin's desirability and value. Alongside obvious minting errors and strike quality differences, the overall condition of the coin plays an equally crucial role in determining worth. Coin grading is a system that describes the quality and preservation of a coin's surfaces. It ranges from heavily worn, good condition, where details are difficult to make out, to near perfect, mint state condition, where even the finest details are sharp and original luster remains. Coins in mint state, especially those graded MS63, MS65, MS66, and above, are prized because they have never been circulated and show little wear. For a 1980D dime that looks almost new, grading by a professional service can certify its condition and attract significant prices from collectors who seek pristine examples, but even grading has layers. A coin that earns a high numerical grade and also qualifies for a full bands designation is especially valuable. The designation means that specific design elements, in this case the torch bands, are well defined and complete, indicating exceptional minting quality. Collectors often pay a premium for these dual recognized traits because they represent the highest levels of visual excellence and rarity within modern circulating coinage. Over the years, dozens of 1980D dimes with various conditions and errors have appeared in coin auctions, online marketplaces, and private collections. For the casual collector or curious treasure hunter, these coins represent not only potential monetary value but also a tangible connection to the history and machinery of American coin production. Each error tells a history. A misaligned strike hints at a moment when the planchet slipped. A clipped edge marks a miscut blank from a metal strip. A brilliant mint state coin speaks to a perfect impression born of ideal pressure and alignment. These imperfections are evidence of a human element in a process that tries for perfection but cannot always achieve it. As with any collectible market, worth is not fixed. It fluctuates with demand, rarity, condition reporting, and grading trends. Coins that once sold for modest premiums can command higher prices as more collectors become aware of their existence and value. Auction results for top-grade or dramatically errored 1980D dimes show how the market recognizes and rewards scarcity and exceptional quality. A dime that might sit unnoticed in pocket change could suddenly be identified by a keen eye, professionally graded, and sold for an amount beyond what its owner ever expected. Even among circulated coins without major errors, there is a market. Many collectors seek complete date and mint mark sets of Roosevelt dimes, meaning they want at least one example of each year and mint location. While a common circulated 1980D dime might still only be worth its face value or a few cents more to a dealer, to someone completing a collection it has a specific value: the satisfaction of filling a gap in a roster that might span decades. In the broader world of numismatics, modern coins like the 1980D dime have become more interesting to collectors precisely because earlier eras of coinage, especially those containing precious metal like silver, have long been recognized as valuable. As collectors have expanded their interests into contemporary coins, criteria like full bands designations and mint errors have given new life to issues that were once overlooked. The 1980D Liberty dime sits at the intersection of everyday currency and collectible rarity, familiar enough to many, yet mysterious enough to harbor surprises for those who know what to look for. To understand its worth in today's market, consider that basic circulated 1980D dimes remain worth about a dime. Most can still be found in change or in rolls purchased from banks. But as soon as you introduce higher grade, full bands, or dramatic errors, the value can rise into the tens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. Collectors who specialize in modern era coins sometimes pay premiums for dramatic misstrikes. Those focused on high-grade Roosevelt dime sets pay premiums for uncirculated specimens with exceptional strike quality. Auction houses and certified grading services have recorded sales of 1980D dimes at prices that would astonish anyone unfamiliar with the coin collecting world. The key factors are rarity, condition, and eye-appeal qualities that elevate a 10-cent piece of metal into a collector's prize. The idea that a small coin like the 1980D Liberty dime could be worth far more than face value demonstrates the fascinating intersection of history, manufacturing, chance, and human desire. These coins were not made with the intention of becoming rare collectibles, yet some have become exactly that through the quirks of production and the discerning eyes of collectors. Whether you found such a coin in circulation, inherited it from a family member, or discovered it among old coins in storage, the potential for value lies not just in its metal or age, but in the history it carries and the market that recognizes that history. The 1980D dime teaches us that value is not always what it seems. A coin that was once pocket change can become a piece of history with worth measured not in 10 cents, but in the thousands. Its errors and anomalies are not just flaws, they are the very traits that make certain examples rare, desirable, and valuable. Collectors pace, study, and compete for coins that defy the ordinary, that bear witness to mistakes in the minting process, and that stand as reminders of both human fallibility and mechanical precision. In the world of numismatics, the 1980 Liberty dime is more than currency, it is a testament to the idea that even the smallest objects can hold extraordinary value. If you ever come across one of these coins, take a closer look. You might just be holding something much more precious than you ever imagined. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a seemingly ordinary dime, only to glance down and realize something about it feels different. Maybe the date looks unusual, maybe the mint mark seems odd, or maybe part of the design looks off. What if that unassuming 1994 Liberty dime could be worth far more than its face value of 10 cents, perhaps even hundreds or thousands of dollars? What if the history behind it, the way it was made, and the mistakes that sometimes occurred during production mean that coins like this carry stories of rarity, excitement, and real market value that collectors chase around the world? Let's explore the full journey of the 1994 United States Liberty Roosevelt dime, why most are just 10 cents in value, and why some, because of errors, minting quirks, and exceptional condition, are far more valuable today. This history is deep, detailed, and packed with the reasons collectors get excited about this everyday coin. The 1994 dime belongs to the Roosevelt series of dimes, first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, a leader revered for his role during the Great Depression and World War II, but also beloved for his connection to efforts to combat polio. These coins replaced the earlier Mercury dimes and have remained in continuous production ever since. By 1994, the Roosevelt dime was one of the most common pieces of pocket change in America, minted not in silver but in a copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard since 1965. Roosevelt dimes carry a simple yet iconic design. The obverse features the profile of Roosevelt, and the reverse depicts a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. The 1994 Roosevelt dime was struck at the Denver Mint and bears the familiar D mint mark to indicate its origin. In 1994, the Denver Mint produced approximately 1,303,268,110 of these coins, making it the highest mintage for that year, even higher than the Philadelphia P Mint coinage and far more than proof coins from the San Francisco Mint that were sold only to collectors. Because so many were produced, finding a random 1994 dime in your change is extremely common, so common that most of them are still worth just their face value of 10 cents in everyday commerce, or just a bit more when graded in average circulated condition. In typical circulated grades, you might see them valued between about 15 cents and 35 cents depending on slight wear and collector demand. This modest value reflects their abundance and the fact that most circulating coins show wear from daily use. While the intrinsic metal, the copper and nickel, holds only a small melt value, it is the coin's numismatic appeal that drives any additional worth beyond face value, but this only becomes significant under unusual conditions. Day to day, a 1994 dime that spent decades in people's wallets, cash registers, and parking meters is simply going to be worth about 10 cents, the same as every other Roosevelt dime you might find in circulation. It is only when we look deeper at the minting process, at what should have happened when the coin was struck, and at the rare occasions when something didn't go exactly as planned, that the potential for value beyond face value appears. To understand what makes some examples collectible and valuable, we need to explore the possible differences in condition and errors that can occur during production. Hundreds of millions of coins flow through mint presses every year, and while quality control at the United States Mint is extremely high, mistakes do occasionally occur. Those mistakes, from subtle die issues to dramatic strikes gone wrong, are what collectors refer to as errors or varieties. These can transform a mundane dime into a collectible piece worth enthusiast interest and real money. One of the first things collectors look for in Roosevelt dimes is the quality of the strike and the condition known as full bands. This designation refers specifically to the clubs or horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse side of the coin. When these bands are fully separated and sharply struck with complete definition, the coin qualifies for the full bands designation. This is not just a condition thing but also a minting detail. Many coins from mass production show weak strikes with blended bands or less definition, but full bands coins exhibit a level of detail that attracts collectors. For the 1994 D-Dime, full bands examples in high grades are significantly more valuable than ordinary coins. Auction records show that certain Denver Mint Roosevelt dimes with this designation have sold for well over $1,000 when graded extremely high by professional coin graders due to their rarity at such quality levels and the fact that they stand out from the millions of average strikes. These premium coins with full bands at grades like MS68 Mint State 68 are far rarer than their large mintage suggests because most circulated coins simply wore down over time and were not preserved in pristine condition, so collectors prized those that were saved early and kept in excellent shape. While full bands is one significant piece of the puzzle, many other types of anomalies or mistakes can occur that draw collector attention. One category of error coins involves the off-center strike. This happens when the metal blank, or planchet, is not properly seated under the dies at the time of striking. Instead of lying perfectly between the obverse and reverse dies, the planchet shifts, and the impression is only partially applied. The result is a coin where part of Roosevelt's portrait or part of the torch design appears cut off or abnormally positioned. The value of an off-center 1994 D-Dime depends largely on how far off-center the strike was. Mild misalignments might be worth only a few dollars above face value, but dramatic off-center examples where perhaps half the design is missing but the date and mint mark are still visible can sell for significant sums to collectors who specialize in error coins. Collectors often prize these off-center misstrikes because they are visually striking and clearly different from ordinary coins, making them objects of curiosity and rarity. Another common error type that can appear in 1994 D-Dimes is the clipped planchet error. Planchets begin as strips of metal from which blanks are punched out before they are struck into coins. If the strip shifts or misfeeds during this stage, one of the blanks might be cut so that part of the metal is missing. When that blank is then struck by the minting press, you end up with a coin that has a curved or straight missing section along its edge. The significance of clipped planchets varies based on how large the clip is and where it appears on the coin. Small clips might only slightly alter the appearance, while larger ones create a dramatic visual change. Collectors pay premiums for coins with clear, well-defined clipped planchet errors, especially if other features remain strong and legible, and the size of the missing segment is substantial, with some coins bringing notable prices when sold at auction or in error coin markets. Yet another category of error involves what collectors call missing clad layer coins. The standard Roosevelt dime from 1965 onward has a three-layer composition: a copper core with copper-nickel outer layers. During the bonding process of these layers, if something goes wrong and the outer layer doesn't adhere properly, part of the copper layer may separate or peel, leaving an area of raw copper exposed. This type of error is less common and more subtle than off-center or clipped planchet errors, but it can also attract collector interest because it reveals something unusual about the minting process. Genuine missing clad layer errors that occurred at the mint during production and not post-mint damage are of higher collector value because they show a true production anomaly rather than wear or damage after the coin entered circulation. Errors related to the die itself are another intriguing area for collectors. A die is the engraved piece of metal that strikes the design into the planchet. Sometimes a die might receive a flawed impression when it is made, or develop a crack or misalignment over time. A doubled die occurs when the die receives a misaligned impression of the design from the hub, leading to doubled imagery on the coins it strikes. This can show up as doubling in the letters of the date, in the inscriptions, or in some other features of the design. Double die coins from any year can attract strong collector interest if the doubling is pronounced and authentic to the minting process. While the 1994 D-Dime is not widely known for official major die varieties, some double die examples have been reported and can be more valuable than standard strikes, particularly if the doubling is noticeable and well authenticated. Another error type sometimes encountered with Roosevelt dimes is an edge strike or broad strike. An edge strike error happens when a coin is struck partially or completely on its edge because it was misfed into the press. Instead of landing flat between the dies, it might be rotated or tilted so that the strike impression happens partly on the edge surface, creating unusual distortions. A broad strike error occurs when the collar, the piece that normally keeps the metal in the correct diameter during striking, fails or retracts too early, allowing the metal to spread outward. The resulting coin can be slightly larger in diameter than normal and have a smooth, unreeded edge. These errors are fascinating to collectors and can be worth more than the face value, sometimes significantly more depending on their severity and rarity. Of course, these are error-specific values and wide ranges because the typical market value of a normal 1994D dime in everyday circulated condition generally hovers just above face value. Most such coins will be valued at around 10 cents or up to a few dollars if they are uncirculated or visually attractive. Many collectors who seek complete date and mint mark sets of Roosevelt dimes are willing to pay a small premium for uncirculated examples, often in the range of $2 to $5 for straightforward MS-60 to MS-65 grades. While these values are modest compared to dramatic error coins or high-grade full bands examples, they still represent a premium above face value and reflect the coin collecting market's appreciation for better condition specimens. When we look at truly top-tier examples of 1994D Roosevelt dimes, especially those that have full bands and high grades from professional grading services, their values can be astounding compared to ordinary circulation coins. Coin grading services like PCGS and NGC assign a numerical grade from 1 to 70 based on the coin's condition, with uncirculated coins graded in the mint state range. Coins graded MS-67 or MS-68 with a full bands designation are rare because few 1994D dimes were saved in near-perfect condition and struck with such clarity. Auction records show that some of these exemplary coins have sold for amounts hundreds or even thousands of dollars, far above their 10-cent face value and even far above uncirculated examples without special designations. Collectors who pursue these rare coins often assemble sets based on condition, strike quality, and designation, driving demand and value for the best preserved specimens. The contrast between the everyday value of most 1994D dimes and the exceptional value of rare or well-conditioned ones underscores the fascinating dynamic of coin collecting. Most of these dimes still in circulation or tucked away in jars and drawers across America are worth only a little more than their original purchase price in change. Yet among millions of common strikes may lie one with exceptional detail, an unusual mint error, or a gem-quality strike that commands collector interest and real money. Collectors of modern coins like the 1994D Roosevelt dime often look at several main features when determining value: the coin's condition, whether it has full bands, whether it has any errors such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, missing clad layers, double dies, edge strikes, broad strikes, or other anomalies, and sometimes where it was minted. The Denver Mint produced the vast majority of 1994 dimes, making the 1994D example the most common, but even among these common coins, the anomalies stand out and potential value rises. In today's numismatic market, an uncirculated 1994D dime in a basic mint state without special designations might trade for $1 or $2 with a coin dealer or on a collector marketplace. Uncirculated coins graded between MS-63 and MS-65 can see prices in the range of a few dollars to perhaps 20 or more depending on eye appeal. Coins that earn the full bands designation and are graded MS-66, MS-67 or higher may reach into the hundreds or even over $1,000 at auction, particularly if they display exceptional strike quality and luster. Among error coins, values vary widely. Modest off-center strikes might fetch double-digit prices, while dramatic ones with significant misalignment can go much higher. Large clipped planchet errors and broad strike coins also carry premiums well above face value because of their rarity and visual appeal. The history of the 1994D Liberty dime illustrates a broader truth about coin collecting: value is not just intrinsic to the metal content or the face value stamped on a coin. It is a reflection of rarity, condition, history, and human fascination with objects that carry histories of production, chance, and preservation. A dime that was struck at a mint facility over 30 years ago, used in daily commerce, and eventually tucked away can transform from common pocket change into something much more when discovered in exceptional condition or with unusual characteristics. The excitement lies in the possibility, the chance that an ordinary coin might hold an extraordinary history and value beyond its face amount. So if you ever come across a 1994 D dime, take a moment to study it closely. Look at the sharpness of the design, check for any unusual features or deviations from the normal striking pattern, and remember that while most will be worth only 10 cents or a few dollars, some may be the rare exceptions that attract collectors and hold value far beyond what you might expect. The history of this small coin teaches us that even the most everyday objects can contain surprises, and sometimes, those surprises are worth more than mere change. My dears, if you holding a 1999 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin most people see every day, and discovering that depending on how it was struck or what mistakes were made when it was minted, its value today could range from a mere 10 cents to figures that would shock most casual collectors. That's exactly the fascinating journey we're about to take. From the everyday circulation value of the 1999 P. Liberty Roosevelt dime to the surprising world of errors, mint mark oddities, and rare varieties that can make this coin dramatically more valuable. This is the history of a humble dime that can sometimes be worth far more than its face value of 10 cents, and what makes certain examples so special in the eyes of collectors and numismatic enthusiasts. In 1999, the United States Mint produced billions of Roosevelt dimes, including millions at the Philadelphia Mint, for which the P. Mint mark identifies them as coming from that facility. In fact, the 1999 P dime had a mintage in the billions, over 2.16 billion coins struck at Philadelphia alone, making it one of the most common coins in circulation today and one that you're statistically more likely to have come across in pocket change than almost any other year in recent history. Because of this extraordinarily high production, plain, everyday 1999 P Roosevelt dimes that you might spend at a vending machine, park in a machine at the grocery store, or find in your change drawer are generally worth only their face value of 10 cents unless they happen to be in exceptional condition or exhibit unusual characteristics that elevate their interest to collectors. In typical circulated condition, these coins do not command much more than that face value simply because they are so common and widely available in change across the United States. If a 1999 P dime is in better than average condition, meaning it shows minimal wear and retains much of the original mint luster, then it might be worth a bit more to someone building a coin collection, but even then the difference is modest on most pieces. For example, coins in uncirculated grades, like MS60 through MS64 on the standard 70-point grading scale used by professional grading services, are often valued in the range of a few dollars at most. A choice uncirculated coin, say graded around MS65 or MS66, might climb a bit higher simply because fewer coins exist in gem quality condition among the many billion struck that year. These better quality uncirculated coins are visually more appealing and inherently more desirable to collectors who seek spotless specimens or who compile specialized, complete sets of Roosevelt dimes by date and mint mark. Another factor that collectors pay close attention to is a condition known as full bands. On the reverse side of a Roosevelt dime, the torch's horizontal bands are a key detail. If the bands are fully separated and sharply defined, not weak or merged together, then the coin qualifies for a full bands designation. This seemingly subtle detail is actually a major hallmark for collectors of Roosevelt dimes because it reflects how well the coin was struck. In modern coinage, where millions of coins can be produced with slight variations in striking quality, those with completely crisp and fully formed bands are considered superior strikes and are more scarce in higher grades. A 1999 P Roosevelt dime with full bands in a high grade can therefore command premiums well above what an ordinary uncirculated example might be worth, sometimes ranging from multiple dollars up into the tens or low hundreds of dollars for truly exceptional pieces, depending on market conditions and collector demand. But while condition and strike quality alone can elevate the value of a coin from 10 cents to several dollars or more, the potential for minting errors is where the value diverges dramatically from everyday circulation worth to figures that can surprise and excite collectors. Coin errors occur because despite the United States Mint's high standards and quality controls, the mass production process is still mechanical and complex, and every now and then something unexpected happens. A mint mistake might be slight or visually subtle, or it can be dramatic and unmistakable, and these mistakes, when authenticated and properly graded, can make a 1999p dime worth many times its face value. One category of error involves a coin being struck off-center. In normal striking the planchet, the metal blank that becomes the coin should lie perfectly aligned between the obverse and reverse dies. But sometimes if the planchet shifts or isn't seated properly during striking, the design will be off-center. On a 1999p dime, this might mean Roosevelt's portrait is pushed toward one side or part of the design is missing entirely. Off-center errors are graded by how extreme the misalignment is, and this impacts value. Coins that are slightly off-center might bring only a modest premium over face value, perhaps tens of dollars, depending on how appealing or dramatic the error appears and whether key features like the date remain visible. More extreme off-center strikes, where as much as half the design is missing or clearly skewed, attract much higher values among collectors, sometimes well into the hundreds, because they are far less common and visually striking. Another fascinating and far rarer type of error is known as a broad strike. Normally when a coin is struck, a metal collar around the die holds the metal so that it flows properly and achieves the correct diameter and edge read pattern. If that collar fails to close or retracts too early, the metal spreads out farther than normal, producing a coin that is slightly larger and flatter and lacking the normal reeded edge. These broad strike errors can be attractive to error collectors because they represent a clear deviation from normal minting and show a coin that literally grew beyond its intended shape. On a 1999p dime, broad-struck coins without the usual reeded edge can be worth anywhere from tens into low hundreds of dollars, again depending on grade and how dramatically the error appears, because they are far less common than normally struck coins and show a unique minting anomaly. Possibly the most dramatic and collectible errors that have been documented among the 1999 Roosevelt dime issues are those involving the wrong planchet. A planchet is the correct metal blank for a specific denomination for a dime. This would be a copper nickel-clad planchet about 17.91 mm in diameter and weighing 2.27 grams. But in extremely rare cases at some mints, a planchet that was meant for a different coin denomination might accidentally get fed into the dime press and struck with the dime dies. In the case of the 1999 Roosevelt dime series, there are documented examples of broad-struck dime designs appearing on what should have been penny planchets, that is, on copper planchets intended for Lincoln cents rather than the normal dime metal. The result is a coin that visually resembles a dime design but is copper-colored, larger, thinner, and on the wrong metal entirely. These are known as wrong planchet errors and are so rare that only a handful of examples are known. One of the most famous such coins from the 1999 series was a 1999D dime struck on a cent planchet that sold at auction graded MS65 brown for over $6,000, and other examples have fetched similarly high prices because of their extreme rarity and eye-catching appearance. Even within the broad category of mint errors, there can be a wide variety of shapes and forms of mistakes. Double die errors occur when the die itself was impressed more than once in slightly different positions during the die manufacturing process, leading to a coin that exhibits doubling on certain design elements, for example on parts of Roosevelt's profile, the letters, or the date. These double dies can be subtle or dramatic. Minor doubling might not significantly increase a coin's value, but pronounced doubling that is authenticated by professional graders can be collectible and command higher prices than a normal strike in the same grade. Some 1999p Roosevelt dimes with clear double die obverse characteristics have been observed trading in the range of several tens of dollars or more, depending on collector interest and the visibility of the doubling. Another error category that occasionally appears is lamination errors or mistakes in the metal itself, where the layers of the clad composition separate or peel due to some flaw or impurity in the metal strip. These errors can produce coins with irregular surfaces or exposed inner layers of copper. While true mint lamination errors are prized more by specialists because they happened before the coin was struck, such coins must be authenticated carefully because environmental damage after minting can mimic similar appearances. Genuine lamination errors that are verified to be mint originated attract more interest from collectors and can bring premiums above what a normal circulated coin would be worth. All these errors and varieties illustrate a central point. While the vast majority of 1999 P. Roosevelt dimes are common and worth their face value or only slightly more in uncirculated condition, the ones that stand out because of errors, high grade with full bands, or other unusual characteristics can be significantly more valuable. This difference between ordinary circulation value and collectible value highlights the fascinating world of numismatics, where condition, rarity, and anomalies drive interest and market prices far beyond what the metal itself or the face value might suggest. Beyond minting errors and strike quality, another reason coins can become collectible and valuable is simply because of survival rate and visibility. A coin that circulated heavily for years will show wear and be worth only face value or a modest premium. But coins that were pulled from circulation early, stored in albums, protected by collectors, or otherwise preserved in excellent condition can accumulate value over time because there are far fewer examples in that grade that exist today. For example, a 1999 P. Roosevelt dime graded mint state 67 or above, especially with full bands, is relatively rare among the billion struck. Collectors who pursue high-grade sets will pay premiums for these outstanding survivors because they represent the best examples of a common date in the series. Auction records show that such high-grade coins can sell for prices that exceed what ordinary uncirculated coins are worth, sometimes reaching into the low hundreds or beyond depending on marketplace demand and grading service recognition. It's also important to note that while most modern Roosevelt dimes like the 1999 P are copper-nickel clad and therefore have minimal intrinsic metal value, the numismatic value, what collectors pay for condition, error status, and rarity, far outstrips the raw materials. A dime that is worth only 10 cents in everyday commerce might be valued at multiple dollars at a coin show auction, and in the case of verified rare errors or exceptionally high grades, the difference can be enormous. The idea that a small everyday coin could be worth 100 times, 1,000 times, or more than its face value is one of the reasons coin collecting is both intriguing and rewarding for many hobbyists and investors. Of course, not every unusual coin you find will be valuable. Casual collectors and those new to coin hunting should be cautious and seek professional grading services or experienced numismatists to authenticate and evaluate potential error coins or high-grade pieces. Many surface imperfections, discolorations, and anomalies can come from post-mint damage, environmental effects, or improper handling rather than true mint errors, and these post-mint issues often diminish or destroy value rather than add to it. Determining whether a coin is a true mint error requires expertise, careful examination, and often professional grading, which is why many collectors turn to organizations like the Professional Coin Grading Service (PCGS) or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation (NGC) for authoritative evaluation. When you look at the coin market today and compare common circulated 1999 P. Roosevelt dimes with the rare error pieces, the contrast is striking. Ordinary coins in worn condition will still be exchanged for 10 cents, while pristine uncirculated examples might fetch a few dollars among collector circles. From there, coins that earn full bands, exhibit dramatic mint errors like off-center strikes, broad strikes, double dies, or the unusual wrong planchet broad struck on a penny blank can move into levels of value that surprise even seasoned collectors. Some of the truly rare wrong planchet broadstrike examples have sold at high prices in major auctions because of their uniqueness and scarcity, often commanding figures in the thousands. The 1999 P. Roosevelt dime therefore serves as a wonderful example of how a small piece of everyday currency can sometimes transcend its face value and become a collectible of real interest and worth. It bridges the world of everyday commerce with the specialist world of numismatics, where condition, rarity, and minting mistakes are all part of the narrative that can transform a humble coin into something much more valuable in the eyes of dedicated collectors. Whether you find a 1999 P dime in change, tucked in an old jar, or in a collection you inherited, taking a close look might be worthwhile. Most will still be worth 10 cents, but for those few with fascinating errors or exceptional qualities, the value could be far greater and the history behind them rich with detail about coin production, human error, and the ways in which collectors around the world prize rarity.